Let's be innovative. Let's challenge the norm. Let's raise the bar. Let's be the elite.
A new beginning, another opportunity to make a statement. Lionheart celebrates its roots with the car that started it all. 18 races to determine who is the best in the most exciting form of auto racing on the planet. 200-mile-per-hour Indy cars inches from disaster or glory. There can only be one Lionheart Speedway Series champion whose name will be etched into the Lionheart history books. The Lionheart Speedway Series presented by Moser Racing starts now.
Lately, Tyler Graff has been the driver of the month. However, throughout the campaign, it's been Matt Taylor who has dictated control of the title fight. His competitor, for the majority of the season, Matt Wagner, has faltered as of late, while Joe Branch has stunned his way up the boards to keep up with Taylor in terms of keeping him in check. But the question remains, who will be able to be kept in check tonight at the fastest short track on the planet? This is Iowa Speedway, and this is the ButtKicker Iowa 175, presented by GSI. Hello everyone, and welcome to race 14 of Season 2 for the Lionheart Speedway Series, presented by Moser Racing, live on RaceSpotTV and ESTV. RaceSpot, the Lionheart Racing Series, is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit HyperX.com. My name's Justin Prince. Along some of the booths tonight is Andrew Kinsella for today's coverage, with Hugo Louise in the producer's seat. Follow along live top-minute scoring thanks to our partners at ATVO. Let's head straight into our Graafix Esports Countdown to Green as we get going once more. This time, short track style. It's Iowa Speedway that's on the docket tonight. And with just 5 races remaining, the championship could remain in the ever balance. Let's take a look at the next level racing schedule. Iowa, the second to last short track race of the season, Andrew.
And such an important short track it is here, Justin. We've got just 5 races, as you say, left, and they're very, very difficult races at that. Iowa, obviously, tonight, but Charlotte in 1 week's time. Very exciting 1.5 mile track that's going to be very difficult for these drivers to try and tame. And then, of course, you got Richmond and Kansas, and then the finale at Auto Club in just over a month and a half. So there's a lot for these drivers to take care of over the course of these next 5 races. And as you mentioned, Matt Taylor, he's in the catbird seat for this championship hunt right now. But Joe Branch, he's really starting to put up a fight with Matt Taylor here.
Also, let's take a look at the driver standings to help tell that story. Brought to you by Graafix Esports. 64 points is the difference between those 2 drivers entering today. Matt Wagner has dropped all the way back to more than 100 points behind. It has been an elevator drop of momentum when it comes to Wagner's case. He has fallen off a cliff in terms of his tempo.
It really has. His last few races has just been disastrous for Matt Wagner and his championship hopes. He looks so promising for the whole portion of that first half of the season, and then this second half he just hasn't been able to get that momentum that he needs to be able to sustain that. And meanwhile, Matt Taylor, he's been starting to run away with it, but Joe Branch, he's been that consistent runner throughout the entire course of the season, keeping them honest. And then you look at a little bit farther down these standings here, Justin, you got the likes of Andrew Wood, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, and Shane Coogan. They've been having some really solid seasons here. Trevor Malone, he's faltered as of late as well, but there are a number of drivers here poised to make some big moves in the standings.
Team standings, meanwhile, brought to you by HyperX. Let's take a look towards those, where Team Race for Sunset is now holding on to a very slim advantage, Andrew. The advantage just 20 points over Power Slide. Don't forget about Dark Horse Racing. They still have a decent amount of ground within that top spot for the standings. Team Race for Sunset not going to have an easy task to try and close out as team champions with Power Slide really on the rise.
It's been a knockdown, drag-out fight between these 2 teams at the top of the standings, but Power Slide these last few weeks have been one hand tied behind their back with Michael Goodman, the one of the series leaders in pole position so far this year, Justin. He hasn't been in action for Powerside Motorsports in a couple of weeks here, and that's really hampered their efforts to try and slay the Team Race First Giants at the top of this standings. But again, it's just one of those things where you have to keep fighting through it, and Joe Branch is leading the charge for that Powerslide Motorsports bunch in second place.
With that, let's take a look at the rookie standings brought to you by ButtKicker, where Andrew Wood continues to maintain the rookie standings advantage. Shane Coogan chipped away a bit of that advantage last time out when it came to the run at Twin Wing Motegi. Samuel Ryman still holds on to the 3rd spot. Gordon Maid and Jim Herrick, the current top 5. Some strong rookies in the midst of that class, especially with Wood, with his experience on the platform as a whole. Jacob Oster, remember, started off strong at Twin Ring Motegi, was in good contention to pick up a victory there after his slow start to the year.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a fascinating rookie standings to watch. There's been a lot of comings and goings throughout the course of the year, and Jacob Oster, he's really come on strong in the second half of the season, but Andrew Wood has always been the one who's sort of been at the top of these standings so far, and he is looking to try and seal that championship crown in the next few weeks here. But Shane Coogan, he's really been the driver that's been able to take it to Andrew Wood so far in this year. And as you say, Sam Ryman, he's sort of the surprise, I think, for most of us watching these standings, but he's been doing a really solid job in this Speedway series. It's been fascinating to watch just the consistency of Ryman versus the ups and downs of Coogan and Wood.
Racing broadcaster known for trying to stay out of trouble has stayed out of trouble most of the way. With that, let's take a look at your series details presented by GSI. Our drivers are running with the Delar DW12 tonight. Custom fixed setups built by Andrew Kinsella. Cash and prize available of $6,930 as part of this series. And plenty of changes when it comes to how the tides have turned as this campaign has fared out. as we make our way towards the final race of the campaign, the Triple Crown race at Auto Club Speedway, to determine the champion. And in turn, our event details brought to you by Moser Racing. Take the turn toward as we get ready to go racing with the DW12 for the 8th time here in Lionheart competition history. 2 times the pole position has converted to HyperX victory lane, but leading laps, keep in mind, is no guarantee of victory here. That is a critical thing to keep in mind when it comes to Iowa.
Absolutely. It's one of those tracks where you never know what's going to happen. As we can see, 2 drivers have gone from pole to victory lane, but at the same time, because it's a short track, because the green flag pit stops can play havoc if a caution falls at the wrong time, it's just one of those tracks where you have to expect the unexpected, and you can never be too certain of your victory, no matter how far out in front you get. And it's always been a very close race here with this DW12. As you can see, only 1 second difference between is the largest margin of victory here between first and second. So you're always going to be in store for something that is going to be a photo finish or a near photo finish here. So it's really an exciting track to watch these drivers tackle here tonight.
And keep in mind, when it came to last year's event for Speedway Series competition, it wasn't the driver who led the most laps, or even the second most, or even the top 5 most laps who picked up the victory. It was Caleb Bensi, who was someone in the mid-pack led laps with just 10, compared to Tony Showin's 71, who took away the victory last year. That's the major thing to consider when it comes to the strategy roulette that come into play here tonight at Iowa. But the drivers are currently in the midst of their final practice in turn here at the Speedway. We'll have to see how these drivers fare out tonight when it comes to racing at this facility that's been open since 2006. This race distance, 0.088 miles for the racetrack. To be precise, 875 miles on the decimal, but 12 to 14 degrees of progressive banking, and that's a critical thing. Potential of different lines to come into play tonight.
Absolutely. That banking is what makes Iowa so much fun there, Justin, is you really do have multiple ways around this track, multiple lines. You can see it in the practice session that we have on screen right now. There's so many ways to enter the corner and to exit the corner, and it really produces a lot of side-by-side action, particularly with these DW12 cars, because you do have some fairly big amounts of downforce on these cars with those larger rear wings that you see on the IR18 currently. It's that old-style racing that was so popular with the DW12 on these shorter ovals, and it's really produces some great racing, and I'm so excited to see what's going to happen here tonight.
Under a minute to go in final practice. Of note, your quickest driver in the session tonight, Creighton Carter, a 16.911, 71 with about a 3/4 thousandths of a second advantage over Ryan Eric King, Jacob Oster, Gary Gonzo, Samuel Rhyme in the top 5, 3100ths or so separating those respective drivers. Keep in mind, though, 2 of the names just mentioned, Gonzo and Carter, not going to have track positions tonight, Andrew. They have ELO penalties, as well as Matthew Short, Scott Rankin for this event.
And it's going to be interesting to see some of these drivers coming from the back, what they're going to be able to do in this race, because it is a track where you can pass on it. It's difficult. It takes you a long time because these laps go up by so quickly here, Justin. But at the same time, you can pass. You can find your way through the field. So it's going to be a battle for the drivers starting at the back, but it's not something that they can't overcome here.
Final practice comes to a close. That means the drivers now have to regroup to start off for qualifying in some time approaching 9 p.m. here in Newton, Iowa. Plenty of corn to be popped, plenty of positions to be determined for qualifying. The drivers now get set for 5 minutes of solo qualifying, 2 laps to get up on the board, determine who will start on the pole for tonight's race. Last year, the qualifying record was set at a 16.877 by Alexis Newsom. No driver has reached into that bracket, though, for this coming into this qualifying session. The fastest time, as mentioned, was in the 16.9s. As we take a look at the driver who has been red hot the past month or so, this is Tyler Graff, a back-to-back race winner in this series.
There's so much momentum on the side of that 88 car. He is coming in with brimming full of confidence here, Justin. And you can see the line that he's taken. He's taking that outside line on this first lap, trying to get as much momentum up, and then he's going to dip down here to start his second lap, trying to shorten the distance as much as possible, keep it married right down to that yellow line on the bottom side of this track. And you can see just how quickly he's already in 3 and 4 here on this second lap of his run. This is going to be the money lap. He's going to cut down right below the yellow line here, crosses the line, 16.995. That's a fast lap that we got, but it's a little bit slower than we've seen in practice so far.
And we mentioned Matthew Short was a part of the listing of Pelonies coming into tonight. He put up a time in the session. That's the first time anyone's done that this season. We'll have to see what race control determines with the 19. Meanwhile, James Watson has shown flashes of speed throughout the season. Looking to keep it clean tonight as James Watson starts off with a 17.8.
Yeah, but Brian Beard is the driver at the top of the standings right now with a 9.49. Tony Schowen sitting in second place, and Matt Taylor, your championship here, with a 9.67. James Watson comes across the line. He wasn't able to really improve too much here. Jacob Oster is a driver, though, that I'm really starting to keep an eye on. He's starting to come on strong here. That was a 17.769 on his first lap. Will he be able to make it a better lap on his second lap? He's really doing a good job of keeping the car low on the track, and that's key if you want to be able to have a fast lap here at Iowa.
Washes up a little bit out of 4. Where does the time stand? A 17 flat. That's only 10th quickest behind George Anzaldo in front of James Watson. Several heavy hitters yet to hit the racetrack. Joe Branch amongst those looking to set their first time right here. What a season it's been for Joe Branch, now second best in the standings coming into tonight. And looking to try and chip away at Taylor's gap. Still yet to find a victory, but he has picked up 4 top 10s in the past 4 races.
A solid, if unspectacular, season for Joe Branch, and that's just the way he likes it. He's a driver that doesn't necessarily light up the timing stands, but he really knows how to bring home a good finish, and that's what's allowed him to be second in the standings here. We see him cross the line. It's not a bad lap, but just a little bit slower than he was hoping for in 13th position for Joe Branch so far.
And Coogan also jumping ahead of him, so making 14th for the time being. Andrew Wood now building up speed for his second lap meanwhile. 17.9 the first time. We'll see if the Woodman can try and carve his way up. A little lower on the wash-up. Uses the apron and another 17 flat. Driver struggling to reach the 16.9s.
That'll be a disappointment, Wood, but one driver who is not going to be disappointed there is Michael Goodman, making his return after a couple of races off there for the last couple of races. He just put in a 9.34 to lead our times here. Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, though, always one of the faster drivers in qualifying. It's a 16.988. So book that as 6th place, at least for now, for Luis Gonzalez-Nunez.
The case of Michael Goodman, by the way. Goodman, the series leader in poles entering tonight with 5. Taking a look at Samuel Ryman, meanwhile. Ryman yet to record a time, had a 16.948 in practice. If he could do that again in qualifying, that'd be good enough to get him on the front row.
One of your championship contenders, Matt Wagner, in the 3rd position now temporarily, but Sam Ryman, he's looking good so far. Just got to keep that momentum up coming out of turn 4, and it is a 16.982 for Sam Ryman.
One of the best starting positions for Ryman all season, in fact, as that will just about round out qualifying. Jeff Hyson, Scott Rankin, Mike Goodson, Gary Gonso, Creighton Carter not setting times. Most of those a part of the EOL party. Matthew Short did set a time despite supposed to have an EOL penalty. We'll see how things are determined as we get ready for your starting grid from Iowa. Michael Goodman gets a series-leading 6th pole with a 16.93 over Brian Beard. Matt Wagner starts in 3rd with Tony Schowen, Craig Forsyth, and Matt Taylor, the championship leader, starting in 6th. Samuel Ryman with one of his best starts of the year. The independent starts in 7th. Luis Gonzalez-Nunez starts in 8th. Ron Hacker and Trevor Malone round out your top 10. Tower Graf falls back to the mid-pack after starting up at the front during his back-to-back victories. He'll start alongside Mike Rigney. The rookie Jim Herrick starts alongside Big Joe Hassert. with Georgia Nzoto, the boss man, in 15th. Team will start 16th with Jacob Oster and Shane Coogan, the top 18. Back in 19th, James Watson and Andrew Wood starts in 20th. Joe Branch, Ricky Harden, Thea Dupree, Cody Wenson, the top 24. Ryan King starts 25th tonight with Hugo Gowers in the 26th position. Matthew Short is a part of the EOL gang. He'll be dropping to the back. Gavin Sanders, Gabriel Wood, Dakota DeMade, the top 30 in the last of those setting times. The rest of the drivers, Jeff Heisant, Scott Rankin, Mike Gibson, Gary Godsill, Creighton Carter, most of those in the EOL gang. As we take a look now at your cars, let's take a look at your featured onboards tonight. First, your ButtKicker onboard, carried by Trevor Malone. Sim racing is better with ButtKicker. Visit thebuttkicker.com. Gomez Sim Ministries on board, featured by Ron Hacker tonight. Makers of high-end esports equipment and controls, visit GomezSimIndustries.com. The SimRace247.com on board is carried by Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Visit SimRace247.com, where sim racing is for everyone. And the HyperX on board is carried by Matt Wagner. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is ready to game. Let's look at your featured onboard cameras throughout the field tonight. We get ready to go racing, Andrew. Your keys to victory if you want to be able to come away with some sweet corn from HyperX Victory Lane.
So the number one thing for me, Justin, is timing your moves. Iowa is all about patience, and you've got to make sure that you can get clear of the driver, particularly on the exit of these corners. It's going to be so important to not disturb your momentum and really make your way through this field. And the next thing is getting the pit strategy correct here. It's so important, because you go not one but often 2 laps down here, that you need to make sure that your pit strategy is absolutely on point. And then finally, it's getting some clean air on those wings. It's so much nicer to lead this race than it is to follow and try to pick your way through traffic. So Michael Goodman, he's really starting in the catbird seat here tonight. He's really going to have an advantage being on that pole position.
So as talked about, the leader with a major advantage with clean air. Who do you think could get the job done tonight is the major question, because the major thing we seen last year, it was a strategy roulette to be able to hold on to spots.
It's so difficult to predict Iowa, isn't it? Just because of that pit strategy factor, you never know what's going to happen. You never know when a caution is going to come out. The pit entry is so difficult here. I think there are a number of drivers that can really pull something out. Joe Branch is one of those drivers who can stick it out and stretch a fuel load longer than everyone. But a driver like Matt Taylor and Matt Wagner, sometimes the aggressive strategy also comes into play here. So I think there's a number of different drivers who can really take a hold of this. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens here.
Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the ButtKicker Iowa 175, presented by GSI. We're underway from Iowa. For Michael Goodman as he leads things off with a 0.3 of a second advantage over Matt Wagner. Brian Beard shuffled quickly to third. Once the battle is already picking up, Ron Hacker 2 spots up, Cody Wenson up 5 spots, and then span of a couple laps in the 67.
It was not just a good start, but a great start for Michael Goodman, and a terrible start for Brian Beard there. Matt Wagner jumped all over that up to second place, as you say. It's been a little bit chaotic here, and this is going to be indicative of what we see throughout the course of this race. It's just 2x2 action. That outside lane does really seem to be working for a lot of these drivers, but some of the braver drivers are venturing down into that lower lane, and it's really paying off for a few of them.
A couple drivers actually joked during practice there was a super speedway feel to tonight's action. As you take a look at Tyler Graff battling for 11th position with Joe Hassard, just because of that difficulty to pass in turn with the aero wash.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really a track where despite it being so short, you're almost foot flat to the floor here. In traffic, you do have to lift a fair bit more than if you're, say, Michael Goodman or Matt Wagner out front. But there's a lot to be said about having the cojones to keep your foot to the floor and keep your foot in it throughout the course of the thing. But we had a little bit of an incident. Michael Goodman nearly got loose coming out of turn 4 there.
And he got past for it. Matt Wagner now to the race lead. Squeezed him up the trekking turn to clear him on by. Wagner, we talked about him potentially out of the championship picture, so to speak, despite still being in range from his bad luck the past few weeks. Looking to try and turn it back a bit, but Goodman not backing down, dives back to the inside, looking for the race lead back, clears himself as there's the cross.
Whoa! That was a bold crossover there from Matt Wagner. Goodman did the slide job, sort of classic racing that you see here at Iowa, but Wagner was really aggressive there, trying to do the over-under, and I think we're going to see a lot of swapping for position here at the front, because Matt Wagner knows that he has to win this race if he wants to be in contention for that title. But really the problem for Matt Wagner is that Matt Taylor, who is right now fighting for that third position with Brian Beard, he hasn't had a bad race so far. Matt Wagner at this point, he needs Matt Taylor to have a little bit of bad luck here tonight.
That was the second part of the equation. It's hard to gain back points when your championship competitors not having bad luck. The thing is, Matt Taylor nearly got up to that second spot and third spot, yes. He just lost all his ground, though. Keep in mind, Taylor has done this in the past where if he's able to cut through the pack, he's usually the driver to watch for when it comes to arrow wash and pinky passes.
But that is something that we're going to have to keep an eye on, is that arrow wash. And you can see another thing there that looks like Gabe Wood. He gets a little bit loose coming through turn 2. There's a big bump in turn 2 that we haven't really talked about yet, Justin, but it's going to come into play over the course of this evening. And I think that just caught out the car of Gabe Wood in the 04 there.
Gabe Wood just parked it as well. His fastest lap cracked 17 seconds and a crash down the back straightaway. It's Isaiah Dupree. No caution, we stay green. Scott Rankin was also in the vicinity for a moment. Dupree had been running in the 20s before the incident. Now he's got significant damage to the rear wing.
I was going to say that's more than just a little spin there. That's significant contact for the number 98 is Isaiah Dupree, and he just got a little bit low through turn 2 there. And as soon as he hit that apron, he got loose and it got up into that outside wall. It looks like he avoided any major suspension damage, but it's certainly going to cost the number 98 car some speed over the course of this run and over the course of this race.
Checking in some of the championship competitors. This is Joe Branch, still in 22nd position. Now it's 21st, passing Ricky Harding back. Branch not able to get anywhere so far.
Oh, it's been a difficult race so far for Joe Branch, and it's got to be torturous for him seeing the likes of Matt Wagner and Matt Taylor up near the front and knowing that he's far back in the field. But we've seen this from Branch before a couple of times, Justin, where he's just content to sort of take what the race gives him, and somehow he's always there at the end. We are 18 laps in already. It doesn't seem like it's been very long, but this is a long race, 205 laps, so he's still got plenty of time to make his way through this field.
Caution flag is out, trouble down the front straightaway. It's Dean Mall. Several more also taking spins, and we're under caution for the first time tonight here at Iowa.
Just an unfortunate incident there for Dean Mall coming off of the turn 4. Looks like he just got a little bit loose. Might have had a little bit of help there. We're going to have to consult the replay on that. But it looks like the number 40 car there, just some netcode incidents that they got together and got hooked up there. And it looks like both the 40 of Jim Herrick and the 23 of Dean Mall just sort of one of those incidents that can happen at a track when you have such short reaction times and you have such small margins between the cars.
That collected several fast drivers, though. Amongst those picking up significant damage, Andrew Wood, Jacob Oster. So those respective drivers have mandatory repairs. Jim Herrick also coming in. Check that on the 9, major wing damage, but potential suspension damage. Pit stops underway on lap 20. Beard doesn't come in as well as Matt Taylor. Matt Wagner leads the pit stop party.
Yeah, this is where the track position game really comes into play here, Justin, is who stays out, who goes in. A number of drivers at the front decided to stay out. Matt Taylor taking the opposite strategy to Matt Wagner and Michael Goodman here. So that's a little bit interesting from Taylor, trying to stay out this early on in the race. But in terms of the drivers who were coming down pit road, definitely looked like Goodman did fall just behind Matt Taylor there on that pit exit.
So Wagner, Goodman, Forsyth, the race off the pit lane. 8 drivers staying out, amongst those Gary Gonzo, Mike Rigney, Tyler Graff, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Trevor Malone, Ron Hacker, Matt Taylor, Brian Beard. And that's to be expected with the strategy roulette tonight. Here is what Andrew Wood just saw.
And just nowhere to go for the 64 of Andrew Wood. Just one of those unfortunate things that can happen in Iowa. When you're back in the pack, he just literally had nowhere to go when Jim Herrick spun back up the track, and just an unfortunate end to the day for Andrew Wood.
The race car went from being a race car, a Zamboni as Andrew Wood prefers it, to a very big modify. Let's see, for a moment. Oster and Wood losing laps with damage. Jim Herrick also out of the race. Also hearing Gabe Wood out of the race due to health-related issues. But the strategy roulette starting off already here at Iowa. We mentioned this to be expectation here tonight. 56 to 60 laps, the fuel windows projected coming in for this 205 lap race.
And those wide open fuel windows do really create some interesting strategies, and we've already seen it here 20 laps into this race, where some of the drivers have decided to come in, but some are rolling the dice and staying out. And what all the drivers who stayed out here, Justin, are trying to hope for is another quick caution where they're able to keep on saving fuel and maybe cut out a stop here, because what they really, really don't want to see is a cycle of green flag pit stops where it puts them in the danger zone a couple of laps down. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And it's interesting that Matt Taylor was one of the drivers who decided to take this gamble of staying out here. If I were Matt Taylor, I probably would have been a little bit more conservative here and came down with everyone else.
By the way, Gary Gonzo just came in this time by, so he's elected to go to the back. But the strategy roulette, reading play here, you'd have to think, hoping for cautions, precautions. So the afterthoughts coming in. 182 to go coming up this time around here at Iowa Speedway. For those just tuning in, you're watching the ButtKicker Iowa 175 presented by GSI. Brian Beard in control of the field now as we get ready for the one to go signal. It is a long caution racetrack, keep in mind, at Iowa Speedway tonight. The caution flag periods can take upwards of 4 to 5 laps. Keep that in mind as the night progresses. So just about all set to go. Have to see how this fares out.
Yeah, and I think the goal for Matt Taylor here is he's got to find a way past Brian Beard as quickly as possible here. And I think that's something that he probably feels fairly confident in here. He's got to get up a lead, and he's got to hope that we get through not only one cycle, but several cycles of pit stops where he's able to cut out a stop, figure out a way to get back on strategy, because Matt Wagner's only in about 8th place here, so there's not a lot of buffer between himself and all those drivers who's come down pit lane here.
All set to go for the restart. GSI back machine of Beard in control of the pack. Green flag is out, back underway. And already one driver quickly darting to the left side of the circuit at the back of the pack. The rest of the drivers start to scrap a bit. It's Tyler Graff to the inside. Luis Gonzalez Nunez looking for 5th.
Here are the drivers who stayed out on this past round of yellow flag pit stops. Tyler Graff, he definitely is looking to recover from that qualifying effort to a certain extent, and he's using the strategy as best he can, but he just can't find a way past Luis Gonzalez Nunez at this point.
But Andrew Wood trying to come back from the racetrack, just had to re-enter the pit lane. 2 significant damage to continue rolling despite having non-mandatory damage. Mike Gibson also a black flag being served currently. Meanwhile, amongst these drivers shuffling, Matt Wagner trying to regain the ground he lost to Mike Rigney off the launch. See, that gap has closed down to 1 car length already.
And this is exactly what Matt Taylor was hoping to avoid here is the fresh tires of Matt Wagner's coming into play here. He had a little bit of time to try and regain his footing on that initial start, and you can just see how much better he's able to grip the bottom of this racetrack. But the driver in front of him, that's Tyler Graff, checking him up just a little bit. He might go 3 wide coming down this back straightaway.
Thought about it for a moment. Michael Goodman backs out of it, though. Instead falls the aero wash. At Wagner clears on by Graff. Rigby already being shuffled into the heart of the pack in turn. So the drivers on fresh tires starting to get rolling along the bottom of the racetrack. They zip on by Wood. It appears Wood may not be able to continue that damage too significant. They still battle for 5th now.
Looks like Jacob Oster as well is going to be out of this race at the point. He has not rejoined the tracks and in fact has exited out of the sim. Jim Herrick and Gabe Wood also out. You can see right now, Justin, the drivers who stayed out there, particularly at the back of the pack, they're starting to get picked off. And one of the things that's going to be so difficult for these drivers is they're going to have to be very, very patient because their cars just simply won't be working as well as the drivers on fresh tires. So they have to find a way to mitigate the damage that is happening right now.
Michael Goodman trying to mitigate that damage to keep up with a 3 machine in turn. Rounding the bottom of the racetrack this time, battling it out with Trevor Malone. Michael Goodman, one of the power slide cars, keep in mind. We talked about missing a couple starts. It's been about getting luck when it comes to him and his races on the pole. We mentioned it the last time we seen him on the pole. He usually ends up hitting a spurt of bad luck despite that qualifying tempo.
He does, Justin, but in this race, he's really set himself up well here. He's positioned himself well. He's right behind Matt Wagner, the second driver on that sort of alternate stop where everyone stopped on that last caution. He's the second driver on that strategy, so he's positioned himself really well. Meanwhile, we've got some battling here back in the pack. This is Tyler Graff and Joe Hassert battling for the top 10 here.
Joe Hassert now to the top 10. Trying to clear Graff, couldn't do so though in the heart of the pack. Forced back around to the inside line in the purple and white machine. And that top line is just so difficult to be able to clear on by tonight. How do you try and round that track around the bottom of the circuit, make sure you clear in time, knowing how, if you get stuck at the bottom, it seems, well, you see the result.
It really, really is difficult. And what Joe Hassert did there is basically all you can do is try and slide up in front of your opponent on the corner exit. The key thing is timing. Oh, we have a spin here coming. That's the number 17 car that looks like.
Into the wall, that's Cody Wenson. Wenson has lost a wing. No caution, we stay green. 28 cars still running
Wenson
forward without
again.
damage. And now this could bring it out. Yes, Wenson across the racetrack in front of the leaders brings the caution out.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Cody Wenson realized that he had lost his rear wing there in that incident. What happened there, I think Ricky Harden got a little bit too aggressive there on corner exit, gets into the back of Cody Wenson. Wenson spins into the inside line, and then he's got no rear wing, and he spins it out on corner exit there. And creates a really treacherous situation for the leaders of this race.
So that brings us under caution after another 20-lap run. I will have to see how the strategy roulette plays out. 40 laps on the tires in some cases for Beard, Taylor, Ron Hacker, and company. We'll see how many of them elect to come down. In fact, the top 4 on those who stayed out previously coming in. Michael Goodman as well coming in.
Yeah, it looks like Big Joe Hassert. Yeah, Big Joe Hassert is the first driver to stay out here. Everyone else coming down pit lane. I think you're sort of within a more secure pit window now for the drivers who are coming down pit lane. So this was really beneficial for Matt Taylor, for Ron Hacker here. The question is just how beneficial will it be? Will Matt Wagner be able to leapfrog a few of these drivers because of the shorter fill that he'll have? We've got a number of drivers coming off pit lane. It looks like Brian Beard just beats out Matt Taylor coming off pit lane.
It was by a bit of a wing and turn. This time, just 3 drivers staying out, potentially 2, as we've seen Gary Gonzo already come in once on this strategy dice roll. Joe Hassard and Dean Mull, the only 2, in fact, who have stayed out here. Dean Mull, remember, was involved in the first caution of this race.
He was a big portion of that caution, in fact. So this really does get an interesting situation for Dean Mull, and what I think he's playing at here is definitely track position. He knows that car isn't really working very well in that lap traffic, in the back of the field sort of traffic area that he's got. So he's going to see what happens at the front of this field with some clean air. And I don't blame him, to be honest, Justin. I think that it's probably a good play for him to get this track position, particularly how we've seen sort of a caution coming out every 20 laps or so.
Falling on board with Michael Goodman. Already Gary Gonzo signaled he's coming in. So Goodman back up to the top 5 coming up here. Michael Goodman, as mentioned, 1 top 5, 3 top 10s on the season. The starts he's had from the pole, remember, 32nd at DNF at Texas, 15th in Atlanta, 30th at Kentucky, a DNF. Then 12, picking up a DNF in 26th at Indy and 27 at New Hampshire. Goodman looking for luck in his first start since August the 1st.
It really has been a tough go for Michael Goodman from the pole, but if any track sort of invites you to break a streak, it's Iowa, where so many unpredictable things can happen. And so far, so good for Michael Goodman. He's still well within that top 5 position. And this is just the type of run that he needs to have happen here. He's well within striking distance of Matt Taylor and of the lead of this race. We've seen him battle with Joe Hassard already a little bit in this race. He's going to be able to do that again here on this restart.
He's still on top of the iRacing pace car. Of note, Scott Rankin has come back down and topped off for fuel. Gary Gonzo has seen coming in. George Soto had to make a wing change during this caution flag period. So coming up to the 1 to go on the signal. That came up a few laps early. That would have worked out for the track position, would say, for those who stayed out the first caution. Most of those who were up in the front were up in the front before the first caution.
But I would say it still did work out well for the likes of Brian Beard and Matt Taylor. It did prevent them from being tumbled even further down, because Matt Wagner and Michael Goodman were looking very, very racy there. So I do think that for the more promising contenders in that alternate strategy, it definitely did work out here. And one thing to mention is Cody Wenzen did mention that he had no meatballs, so he didn't really know that that wing had come off his car. So that's what happened with that secondary spin that brought out the caution.
There's the driver explanation coming in. We're all set to go. Coming to 161 laps to go. Joe Hassard in control of the pack. Green flag is out. Back underway. Pulling launch, Tyler Graff immediately one of the first drivers looking to make a move. The rest of the drivers keeping it patient for the opening corners.
Tyler Graff looking racy here with Craig Forsyth, and just behind them, Ricky Hart and Mike Rigney going hard. So it's quiet at the front of the field, but in towards the mid-pack, it's really starting to pick up here, Justin.
See that with Craig Forsyth, who was running top 5 before some of the cautions started to rain out for D Racing Machines. Logos on the card should say. Still trying to find a way around Luis Gonzalez Nunez, not able to close up the gap yet.
And just a little bit further back behind this pack as well, you have Joe Branch, one of our championship contenders. He's up to 16th, just behind Ryan Eric King, and he's been looking to find a way back. Meanwhile, Matt Taylor, he's found a way around Dean Mull here at the front. Michael Goodman also looking to get around the driver who stayed out on that last caution.
Very close call there with Goodman, though. We cross the front end of Dean Mull's machine. Ron Hacker, the next one up to try and make the move. For the race lead, Beard makes the pass down the bottom. Flying Beard back to the point. Took him only 5 laps after the restart. Next up behind him is Taylor.
You can really see what those fresh tires mean when you don't really have a lot of drivers in between. Meanwhile, it's almost 3 wide here. Oh, and that was right at the front of the field.
Caution is out, and you see at the bottom of the racetrack, the trigger, that's Shane Coogan. Coogan running the bottom of the circuit. We're under yellow again, and this was on his own.
And I think Coogan had a little bit of damage from an earlier incident. You can definitely see it on that left side of his car. It just hits that bump, and when you hit that bump the wrong way, especially with a damaged car, it just pitches around, and that's all that Shane Coogan there. We're back under caution.
Caution breed cautions, right? Seen that definitely come into play. It looks like Dean Mull, after losing on the track position, has signaled he wants to come in. Outside of that, expecting most drivers to stay out here. We ran only about 11 laps from the previous stoppages. 12 and 12 laps from the last caution, most of those under the safety of the yellow flag. Speaking of yellow, the yellow car, Brian Beard, in control of the pack, has led 24 laps so far.
Yeah, Beard has been showing some real strength here at the front of this field. He's been under attack at a couple points in this run, but whenever he gets that clean air, he's really been able to sort of stretch it out a little bit. We do have a few drivers on pit lane here, though, led by Craig Forsyth. That's the main driver, as well as Dean Mull coming down and abandoning that strategy. So some interesting games being played with the strategy. We also have a number of drivers from sort of back in the field coming down, and I don't blame any of the drivers back in the field for coming down and taking fresh tires here, because we've seen already that fresh tires really do make a difference, even if it's only 10 or 15 laps.
Still in the spot, Beard in control of the pack right now in terms of controlling the laps led. Last time out, Twin Rail Taggy, he was a contender at one point, finished in 6th, remember. One top 5, that coming from Indianapolis earlier on in the campaign. Auto charge back for Joe Hasser. Take a look. The 11 machine right now, the veteran for Lionheart competition, has also had some flashes of pace. 2 top 5s this season. In fact, one of them came out last time out at Twin Mertegi. He was also a part of the aggressive battling for the win at one point.
Joe is absolutely one of the drivers who, particularly on an oval, when all the cards fall his way, he knows how to finish this race. The question is, what will happen over the course of this run? We definitely know that he's on this sort of alternate strategy island here, having not come down on the previous 2 cautions, and going to be interested to see how his tires hold up and what happens when he finally does have to come down pit lane. If we finally do get to some green flag pit stops, Justin, Joe Hasser could be in a little bit of trouble here.
Right on that, he is the only one on his strategy now. Gary Gonzo again just topped off this time. 2 to go signal given to the drivers. So it's now in the major mark of how do you split this up the rest of the way, because it looks simple on paper, so to speak, but it can't be as simple as that, right?
No, it's never as simple as that at Iowa, particularly when you have a car like this where you can race side by side and you know that cautions are going to be coming up. So you really not only have to be cognizant of what you're doing in terms of fuel to split it up evenly and to maximize that, but you have to figure that you're going to get at least another 2 or 3 cautions in this race at a minimum. So these drivers are doing this in the car as they're going around under caution, but also when they're going under green, doing 17, 18-second laps. So it's a very difficult proposition to try and figure out the fuel strategy on the fly. But these drivers have to do that and have to maximize it in order to come out on top of a race like this. It's incredibly difficult, but also really fun to watch.
One to go signal has been given. Beard, Hassert, Taylor, Goodman, Wagner. Your top 5 now. Ron Hacker, Tony Shaw, Trevor Malone, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Tower Graf. Top 10.
Hacker is another driver who's really benefited from the fuel strategy, and he's inserted himself well within this top 10 here. So now that he's on the sort of same mainline strategy that everyone else is, barring Joe Hassert, it'll be interesting to see what he does here on this restart.
It's time to see how things play out here. With 150 to go now from Iowa, cautions have bred cautions for much of this race. We're back underway from Iowa. Clean start once again by Beard. Michael Goodman already trying to make a move on Taylor through 1 and 2. The rest of the pack starting the single file already.
Single file for now here, Justin, but we got a number of drivers who are trying to move up while the positions are right for the taking. None more so than Ron Hacker and Tony Shaw and Trevor Malone. This battle here is going on, and I think it's going to go on until we get some movement here. Tony Shaw looking to the bottom of Ron Hacker in through 3 and 4.
Hacker able to hold off Showett in turn. Remember, Showett led the most laps last year at this racetrack. Breakthrough so far as we take a look at the 21 in the middle of the screen, trying to hold things off in the midst of this fight. Meanwhile, for second, Taylor builds up the run on Hassert. Goodman checks up behind them. Taylor looks again.
And you can see just how powerful that outside line is for Joe Hassert. He's able to keep his momentum, but it's only a matter of time before Matt Taylor finds a way to just clear him off. And all I think it's going to take here is the number 5 of Brian Beard in that lead, getting a little bit more of a lead over Joe Hassert. And that's all it's going to take for Matt Taylor to be able to find a way to slot in front. Meanwhile, Michael Goodman is just stalking these drivers, and right behind him is Matt Wagner as well. So there's a lot of championship implications right now in this top 5 battle.
Goodman still trying to sort things out, trying to find clean air. Everyone else in his line matching the same marks. Taylor this time chooses top. Behind them, Wagner. It's middle. Here comes Goodman.
Yeah, Goodman was looking to that inside line. He's really making that clean air work on that low line. The trick is he's got to find a way to clean. Oh, we got Dean Mall spinning off a turn 4.
And we're under caution yet again. Dean Moll's night may be done here in the 23 machine. Significant damage was running middle of the pack before the caution, as that was Ryan Eric King.
Yeah, and that was a little bit of help for Dean Mall on that caution flag there, and I don't really blame Dean Mall at all for that incident there. You can't really predict a car pushing up like that, and it's an unfortunate end for Dean Mall. He was looking good for a little while there on that alternate strategy, but then he pitted, he found himself mired in the back of the field, and then stuff like that can happen.
Here's another look. Straight to the wall on top of the safer barrier. Cautions, breed cautions, breed cautions, breed cautions. Last year's race had 8, remember. The high for this chassis was back in season 3 when it was the IndyCar series with 9. We are already about halfway to that mark. Here it comes Joe Hassert. Comes in with the back of the field for this sequence. About 15th on ahead, staying out for this pit stop cycle.
Joe Hassert was the major one coming down pit lane, but we're riding on board with one of your championship contenders in Joe Branch coming down pit lane as well. And this is where things start to get a little bit interesting here, Justin, is you're not really in necessarily a pit window here, but what you are in is in enough time between the last pit stop for most of the drivers and this pit cycle where you can get significant overlap in terms of potentially trapping some drivers a lap down. So If I'm Joe Branch, I definitely don't mind this strategy of coming down pit lane this time by and seeing if I can maybe trap some drivers later in the race, because sooner or later, even though we've been seeing a lot of cautions in this race, it's going to go green for a portion. We've always seen that at Iowa. There's always a green flag run. There's always going to be some green flag pit stops. So if you can find a way to make that strategy work for you, and I think Joe Branch might just be able to do that with this pit stop here.
See how this goes as the night now progresses. Ryan Eric King, after that contact, has just also parked it as well. So we're down to 26 running, 25 on the lead lap. Time of this caution flag. Michael Goodman up to third with the time of the yellow, Taylor to second, by the way. The biggest mover in this race currently, and we'll see if the 2 comes down yet again to change that quickly, is Gary Gonzo. I believe he's already signaled he wants to come in. Up 21 spots. That's if he wants to keep the 21 spots gained. The answer is no, he does not want to keep 21 spots gained on the race.
The 84 right behind him of Hugo Gallus, he's done a good job of making his way through the field as well. I do believe he's coming down pit lane as well. So that leaves our biggest mover, I believe, is Creighton Carter right now.
Quickest in practice, yes.
Yeah, so Creighton's another driver that you want to sort of keep an eye on. He doesn't often qualify very well, but he's one of those drivers who, as long as he can stay out of trouble in the early portion of the race, he normally can factor into sort of the late stages of a race, again, if he can stay out of trouble here.
One with Carter. Last time out, it was a DNF at Twin Mirotegi. Keep in mind, in 30th, he was a 10th place finisher at Chicagoland, though. Best finish of the season, 9th at Kentucky. Still waiting for the lights to go out on top of the iRacing pace car. Beard continuing to log lead laps up at the head of the field. And you have to think eventually we'll go green, right? Cautions, precautions can't last forever.
Absolutely. There's a certain point where you just sort of, everyone decides to hold station a little bit at Iowa, and the chaos just suddenly breeds the calm, and you suddenly find yourself clicking off 100 or 150 laps with no caution here. And I think we're poised to see that happen here on this restart. It might be this restart. It might be another caution or two, but sooner or later, you're going to put yourself in this long green flag run. And when that happens, you really start to see, first of all, who has pace, but second of all, who has the right strategy and who made the pit stop at the right time to capitalize on that long green flag run.
The caution parade has been led by a yellow car much of this way. Brian Beard coming up to 40 laps led to this green flag sequence. We'll try it again. Green flag is out, back underway. Once again, Tyler Graff the first to already look to make a pass. The rest of the pack single file. Wagner. Once those watching the backdrop of his mirror, several drivers trying to dart to the inside. Take a look at Graff right there, trying to battle that. Up in front of them is Tony Shalwin.
An aggressive move there from Tyler Graff, but you have to be aggressive on these restarts to make these positions work. And you can see Ron Hacker just defending on that outside line, and soon Graff is going to be under attack here from Houston as well as Nunez and Trevor Malone. So momentum is another thing that we have to keep in mind here, Justin. You really have to be careful with that. Michael Goodman, meanwhile, looking for second place underneath Matt Taylor.
And nearly clears. Taylor not backing down. Taylor using a little bit of space. Goodman trying to squeeze him nearly to the wall. Nearly contact.
Oh, it was near disaster there. Oh no, Matt Taylor!
Taylor, the championship leader, gets crashed. Taylor upside down in 1 and 2. We're under caution, and the championship has just taken a tumble.
Everything has been turned upside down, literally and figuratively, for Matt Taylor here, Justin. That was the absolute worst case scenario that Matt Taylor could have come up with, has just come across. We have just a little bit of net code. Unfortunately, it doesn't really look like Goodman did anything wrong. Yes, he kept Matt Taylor on that high line coming into one, but There was a little bit of air between the two of those drivers, and it's just an unfortunate incident that takes out your championship leader here.
That's exactly what Matt Wagner may have needed to chip away back to that gap. Joe Branch as well, but Branch is outside the top 10 still. Keep in mind, there are drop weeks in this series. The previous worst finishes that would have been in that range, 16th, 15th, 19th, 27th. The 15th place from Pocono, I believe, will now come into effect because of that one, unless Taylor can keep going here. He's currently 25th.
Yeah, it's not the disaster that it could have been for Matt Taylor, but 25th, 26th, it's not what he was hoping for from this race. The question is, will his championship contenders now be able to take advantage of it? Of course, Matt Wagner is in your third position here, Justin, but Joe Branch, he's a little bit farther back in this field, so there's a lot of work to be done from Matt Taylor's championship competitors here, and this could change a lot of things, but in many respects, Matt Taylor has the championship lead in order to be able to keep this advantage and absorb the negative impact of what happened here just a few seconds ago.
It'll be really intriguing how the official points in turn shake up because of this. Tony Schowen, by the way, is now up to 4th. Tony Schowen, the championship competitor last season, and was a competitor battling for the win last time out. Finished in 3rd at Twin Rim Motegi and led 4 laps. The most laps led, though, of this entire season compared to last year, though, Andrew, just 10 from Pocono, and he DNF'd in that race.
It really hasn't been a good season here for Tony Schowen, but he's one of those drivers that you know he's got the speed. It's just a question of being able to put it all together in a race and put together a run of races. And Schowen just hasn't been able to do that so far, but he's got the speed to do it. And we know that he can do it over the course of a season, just not so far this season. But Iowa is one of those races, Justin, where anything can happen, and it can also turn the momentum of the season on its head. So Schowen is one of those drivers I definitely want to keep my eye on and see whether he can sort of capitalize on this really good positioning here, sort of a third of the way through this race, and convert it to something a little bit more, and then see if he can keep this momentum going.
It's been a caution-filled affair. Our longest run, 20 laps tonight. Have to see how this scraps up next, because the reason I say scraps up is Tyler Graff, we've seen him have some good launches. He is the first driver usually to make a pass. He's lining up for this restart in 6th spot, Andrew, in the 88. And outside of what we've seen the previous races, this race is different when it comes to the case of Tyler Graff. I think it's worth noting, Andrew, because previous 2 races he had the track position for the get-go, held on to it all race. He's had the scrap from the mid-pack for the first time in a couple weeks.
For sure, he's not shown the outside and raw pace that he had in the last couple of races, but what he has shown here today, Justin, is just this tenacity and the ability to stay around where he needs to. And it's still early on in this race, so he still has a lot of time to figure it out, figure out the lines. He's in a good position. I still think that Tyler Graff can really play a factor as this race goes on.
And coming up to the restart, Brian Beard still in the race lead. Michael Goodman, Matt Wagner, the top 3. They, along with Joe Hassert, the only drivers who have led laps remaining in this race. In fact, the only drivers to have laps scored for them tonight. Up in the first position. Graff is already trying to make a peek to the inside before we even get to the restart zone. Pace car is off. Green flag is out. And there goes Graff for 5th. That took all of negative 10 seconds.
He slips up rather aggressively in front of Ron Hacker for that 5th position. So as you say, Tyler Graff wasting absolutely no time here trying to get up through this field. But I think the major story here is what can Michael Goodman do? He's already looking to the inside of Brian Beard here for the lead, and it looks like he's got it.
Remember the last time Goodman was up towards the lead, there was the swap arounds for the spot. This time he leads for the 8th time tonight. Brian Beard, though, ready for the swap draft. Back to the inside for the point. Goodman looking for the cross. Wagner nearly took that chance away from him as Goodman back for the lead.
You're really seeing here, Justin, I don't think that the leader really has a distinct advantage. The second place driver can use the draft and really get around and get a good run going. So at least early on in these fuel runs and these tire runs, they're just not able to create the separation that they need to be secure in that top spot.
The swap this time, Goodman electing to follow Brian Beard. Pass settled back into the 5th position. Joe Hassert, remember, is on some of the fresher tires in the pack and is making moves. There's the swap. Back to the lead. This time going a little lower from the wall as there goes Beard for the point again.
And there's Matt Wagner in 3rd. He's hounding the back of both of these drivers. He hasn't seen an opening yet that can really put his nose in. But at the same time, he's really seems like he's a driver to look for if he's one of these duos slips up even a little bit.
Error squeezed by Goodman. He has been very cutthroat tonight. Now a big block for a moment. Beard again getting the run. Wagner in the popcorn seat, trying to dive for 2nd. Goodman loses 2nd down the back for a moment.
And Wagner's really trying to take that spot away from Goodman, and he does slip up in front of him on the exit of turn 4, and his teammate Tony Schoen now looks to the inside of the 99 of Michael Goodman. Meanwhile, Tyler Graff trying to work that outside line. It looks like he's got 4th place here.
Able to squeeze on by the 31 machine. Close calls there again with Joe Hassert trying to cut his way back up to 7th spot. Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Nunez, remember, did not have a good time at Iowa last year. This time, it's a little bit cleaner as he tries to run the high side and hold off Joe Hassert and does for now.
It's amazing how fast the action could come here at Iowa Speedway. There's so tight confines, even though you see 3 or 4 lanes here that these drivers can use. The drivers and the confines here are just so small, and the drivers can basically come together in an instant. Here's Joe Branch here getting passed by Gavin Sanders on that outside line. Branch really hasn't been able to do anything, but Sanders is certainly on the move here. That's Ricky Harden, the Harden-the-Wall car right in front of him.
Keep in mind, these drivers talked off again last caution and can go the furthest out of anybody in the field if it goes green for pit stops. Sanders, Carter also joining the fray up to 2nd on that strategy now. Joe Branch sliding back, and Dakota DeMade is also joining the fun. 2 wide in front of them. Check up this time with James Watson on the inside.
And Watson on the low side, just not able to fight off Ricky Harden and Gavin Sanders, and it looks like Creighton Carter might also take advantage of it here. So some of these drivers on these fresher tires, they're really starting to take advantage of it, and you can see what kind of advantage it gives. But they're almost 3 wide into 1 here, trying to find a way past James Watson here in that bright green and yellow car that you see on screen. Joe Branch, though, he's been fighting in this mid-pack all race long, and I just don't see him making any progress forward here, Justin.
Been like a brick wall almost as we take a look at the infinite machine of Matthew Short. Short, one of the drivers with an EOL penalty entering tonight. Not able to find a way up to the 16th spot yet. He has been a bit up and down the pylon, though, up 10 spots from his starting slot.
It's been an up and down race for Matthew Short. Certainly it's been up in the last few laps here. He's really started to move since that last green flag came out. He's hounding the back of Joe Branch right in front of him. And you can see him just sort of working that little bit of a higher line and keep his momentum up, and that's really going to serve him well as this run goes on. It'll allow him to keep the tires underneath him, and just sort of find that clean air that really allows him to find whatever speed he can. Meanwhile, Dakota DeMade just a little bit further back in this field, right behind Craig Forsyth. These are two drivers that we saw higher up in the field earlier on in the race, but through some pit strategy, it just hasn't worked out for either Forsyth or DeMade at this point.
Forsyth 18th, DeMade 19th. DeMade did not have a good qualifying run tonight. And remember, we talked about DeMade a lot last year with his speed on tracks like Iowa and Richmond. So far, not looking the same this year. Joe Branch, meanwhile, regrouping behind Watson. Behind them short, getting the run. That gets him around Forsyth for 17th.
Forsyth was looking underneath Matthew Short, and now Short is sort of feeling that pressure and really needs to go here pretty soon. So he's trying to look to the outside of Joe Branch. And Branch, I think he really needs to figure out whether he can work that high line, because that high line seems to be working really well for a number of drivers. But Branch really hasn't been able to work it so far. And he's got to find a way to find some clean air in comparison to James Watson in front of him, because at this point Watson's holding him up, he's holding this whole line up, and he's got to find a way to get that clean air that allows him to get the run that he needs to get by him.
Coming up towards the halfway mark of this race after several caution flags have slowed down the tempo. Come to 104 to go. They crash.
Oh no!
Forsyth goes around. Contact with Short. And we're under caution yet again.
Yeah, that was a little bit of an optimistic move there from Craig Forsyth. I was just about to say that we seem to have gotten the caution monkey off of our backs, but unfortunately there, Forsyth, a little bit of an over-optimistic slide up the track, and it really has cost him a lot there. This is going through 3 and 4 on the lap before or through 1 and 2 there, and you can see he comes up right in front, and he just wasn't clear there, Justin. He wasn't.
Also hit a bit of the bottom of the racetrack prior to the incident. And pit stop time. Once again, the cone falls down on its own accord. Luis Gonzalez stays out. Just about everybody else coming in this time by. Some of the drivers out there for as much and as many as 62 laps.
And this caution really is coming at an opportune time for a number of drivers. As you mentioned, they were getting right to the end of their fuel window here. So a number of drivers coming down pit lane, being able to take service without losing too much time. But at the same time, a few of the drivers will be able to take advantage and maybe vault their way up past a few drivers. Will be interesting to see how this shakes out on pit exit.
Just went out of the pit lane. Brian Beard, by the way. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, you'd have to think would have to come in here. He's coming up to 63 laps on this stint, only 1 stop. Pierre's not coming down the previous time. Gary Godso, Scott Rankin. We've seen top off before. Scott Rankin, for example, right there coming down. So, but in turn, Brian Beard in control here, potentially off the restart.
It certainly is an interesting strategy from Luis Gonzalez Nunez. I'm not sure just how much longer he can go. Certainly not more than 10 or 15 laps, even with all the caution that we've had. So it's an interesting call for me. If you're the 14 car, why would you stay out here? I think you had to down pit lane at some point on this caution. Otherwise, you're risking being caught out and being caught several laps down on the next caution.
The potential move to come up right here if this plays out. Get a bold play potentially for Nunez if he doesn't top off here. Godso already indicating he wants to come in. Godso trying to stay out of as much trouble as possible tonight. Of note, Matt Taylor, prior to the previous caution, parked his machine. Craig Forsyth has also just parked his 72 car. 24 still running. Shane Coogan, the only driver, laps down despite all the caution flags. Some of the body parts being sent around from some of the race cars, as you see debris. Gowers, along with Scott Rankin, back down. But 100 laps to go. Still about a one-stopper for the pit stop cycles, though.
Yeah, you're looking at one stop from here no matter what. The interesting thing for me, if you're Luis Gonzalez Nunez, is knowing that you have a one stop from here. Why would you stay out? And I just don't know the answer to that, Justin. I don't know why he stayed out on this caution, because simply put, he'll have to come down once for fuel and then once again to get to the end. So he's not cut out a stop. He's not done anything that would have put him ahead of anyone, because everyone is going to stay out on the next caution unless it's past where he's going to have to pit in. So very, very puzzling call from Luis Gonzalez Nunez, but he's going to lead the next few laps of this race.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez, the leader. Brian Beard second. Matt Wagner, Michael Goodman, Tony Schau in the top 5. Graaf, Hacker, Hassert, Malone, and Zaldo now in the top 10. The biggest mover for this restart, Creighton Carter, 21 positions. Hearing there is an issue right now potentially for Coogan, already indicating he'll let by some of the drivers starting behind him for the upcoming restart. We're coming up to 99 to go. There is the 29 who's already moving to the left side of the racetrack to let by the lead lap drivers pinned behind him. Meanwhile, through 3 and 4, the leaders ready to see what happens with Nunez electing to stay out here. 99 to go, back underway. Good distance built up over Beard, and some of the drivers not playing nicely. Looking about over 4 this time, but Graaf clears on by. Graaf looking hungry.
Michael Goodman had a miserable start there, Justin. Chucked up his teammate Tony Schau right behind him and allowed Tyler Graaf to get by both of them. So unfortunate instance there for the power slide duo. But meanwhile, at the front, it's Luis Gonzalez Nunez who's stayed out front, at least for now. But the battle is all right here. Joe Hassert versus Ron Hacker and Trevor Malone. They've been all over each other since this restart.
They're already making your contact once or twice. Hacker getting shuffled a little bit. Go back single file for the time being. Beard and Wagner have also swapped drafted a couple times. Now peek to the inside of Schauman goes Hassert. Build up the run yet on the 31. Coming up to 95 laps to go in this one.
Goodman was able to get back around Tyler Graaf, and he's all over the back of Matt Wagner here for 3rd position as well. So the battles in this top 10 are coming fast and furious here. Joe Hassert looking to the inside of Tony Schau, coming into 3 here. Schau takes that inside line, looking to the inside of Tyler Graaf now. So there's a lot of coming and going, a lot of decisions that are being made by these top 7, top 8 drivers.
No indication of what's going to happen with the 14 machine yet. They have nearly reeled back in Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Top 9 starting to just about build a buffer, though. Mike Rigney losing quick ground to this entire pack. Nearly a second behind him. There's the race lead. Brian Beard is going for it. They're not able to clear by. Nunez continues to lead.
You have to think that the fresh tires of Brian Beard are going to prevail sooner or later here, Justin, and Matt Wagner and Michael Goodman. Even if Brian Beard is not able to clear Luis Gonzalez Nunez, they will be soon, because they are very, very hungry to get to the front of this field. Matt Wagner, in fact, looking to the inside of Brian Beard down this front straightaway.
Not about a peak. Couldn't make the peak work, though. Nunez still able to hold firm for now. Geared up to the wall this time. Wagner inside. He was plenty of clearance, nearly bobbled up into the side pod. Forces the back off as Goodman watches the attack up the road. Beard going for the poke on Nunez. And no dice. Beard trying it again.
Always have to hold your breath just a little bit when you see that move happening through 1 and 2. And you can see just how much that momentum is checked up for Brian Beard as Matt Wagner has gotten to his outside now. So it looks like Wagner might just be able to be in position here to clear Brian Beard. Meanwhile, Brian Beard, though, fighting through it. He might clear Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, and he does through turn 3 and 4 there.
Nunez over the radio indicating he needs to pit right here, right now. There goes Nunez. That opens up the door for Beard. Tyler Graaf trying to make a move behind them. But Brian Beard retakes the race lead with the 14 electing to pit under green.
It's going to be so costly for Luis Gonzalez-Nunez. He's going to have to hope and pray that we go green from here to the end. And even then, it's going to be a tall order for that number 14 of Luis Gonzalez-Nunez. So this is the battle that we need to focus on right here. It's the top 4. It's Matt Wagner under attack from Brian Beard, and Michael Goodman and Ron Hacker right behind them.
Goodman trying to size up Wagner still, though. Able to size up forward to get alongside, and right now, decent buffer between them and potential traffic. Nunez just now coming out of the pit lane for reference. Engine up the top of the broadcast, 2 laps down the mark. You elect to come down to the pit lane under green here at Iowa. Hence the major risk. Now 19 laps in the field run for everybody else.
And so even if a caution comes out now, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez can get a maximum of 1 of their laps back with a wave round. So it's really, really costly to come down on pit lane under green, particularly if everyone else doesn't. But right now, Brian Beard, Matt Wagner, they're starting to stretch it out over the rest of this field just a little bit here, Justin. This is where we're starting to see the green flag run come into fruition here, and the clean air being in the lead position is really starting to pay off for Brian Beard.
And it has been, it is working out for the time being. As you take a look at Joe Branch, he's now up to 13th, right in front of James Watson, in fact. Remember, he had to try and pass that driver, and had to try to pass that driver so much on the previous runs.
It's been a slow and steady march for Joe Branch, and unfortunately for Branch, it's just not been steady enough because he's been being passed as well as passing others, particularly that number 10 car of Gavin Sanders right in front of him, who is hounding the back of George Anzaldo, your series founder. Sanders has been looking really racy, and he's been slowly making his way through the field. Branch, meanwhile, he just hasn't had quite the pace that we were expecting from him tonight, Justin.
Especially with the need to pick up and keep up with his championship rivals, yes. Even with the troubles for Taylor, Rob's still a factor for the 8 machine to think about. Wagner in one of his best races of the season, at least in this past while. Coming up to 77 laps to go. Still follow on with the 93 of Watson. For the time being, he's currently in front of Creighton Carter, who's under attack by the lap traffic. Remember, Nunez just came out of the pit lane a few laps ago, is carving his way past some of these drivers as you look back at Branch.
Yeah, the fresh tires do make a difference, no two ways about it here, Justin. But Luis Gonzalez-Nunez has just got so far to go here before he's even in contention to get one of his laps back the hard way. But this is an interesting battle here between Branch and Watson, as Branch just wasn't able to make that high line work, but at the same time, he wasn't able to use that low line to defend from Watson. And now Watson, after all that work from Branch to get around him, Watson back in front of him. Meanwhile, Sanders on the inside of George Anzaldo right now. It looks like we might have a battle for 10th position here.
Looking around the bottom to clear Anzaldo. No, he got clear instead. Anzaldo holding on. The boss man working the high side of the racetrack. Able to zip around for the time being to hold off that spot. Anzaldo, remember, starting mid-pack. He's been running as high as about the 10th position here tonight. One thing to keep in mind is lap traffic could soon play a factor for some of these drivers. 2 lap cars. Shane Coogan, Gowers are just in front of the race leader, so that could slow things up and build things up. Sanders building up the run meanwhile. And for 11th, nearly getting around instead. Again, wash, rinse, repeat.
And Sanders, one of those rookies who was really trying to find his footing on the ovals. He just hasn't been able to find that confidence quite yet so far this year, but he's been showing flashes of brilliance throughout the year. It's only going to be a matter of time before he really puts together a full race distance and he starts to figure out how these ovals work. Of course, Sanders, real-life race car driver on road courses, but he doesn't have much experience on ovals. He's working over George Anzaldo, your series founder, and looks like he might just have him cleared here.
Just to say that, the swap draft comes into play, and Anzaldo nearly hits the side of Sanders. There goes that chance. Sanders up 17 spots. Pull back away in the 11th position after the near contact. How nerve-wracking is that as a driver to see the potential send back coming up the inside and then nearly into your side pod?
It's definitely nerve-wracking, no two ways about it, but at the same time, as a driver, you just have to have that confidence in the driver below you to do the right thing. And as long as you're leaving them enough space, it can happen. But that was a big incident right in front of the leaders with Hugo Gallas.
That's Hugo Gallas, yes, the first of the lap cars, in fact. He had been trying to enter the pit lane. He was down on the apron, and bye-bye race car.
And that is a heart attack for many of the drivers who are coming through there, Justin, because it's so difficult to be able to change your lane in the middle of a corner like that in order to avoid a car. He was able to spin up just past where most of the drivers were turning in, but it's such a difficult proposition here. Now, this is going to be interesting because we're just outside of the pit window here. A number of these drivers coming down pit lane right now are going to be looking to stretch this, and we might just have a fuel mileage race.
Not to say, this is a huge time for this caution. Samuel Ryman, Gary Godso already thinking about the top off, it looks like. Seating pace laps. So in come the race leaders. Brian Beard has led 93 laps, the most laps led in the history of the Speedway series at this track so far in a single race. He'll lead them off over Wagner, Michael Goodman, Ron Hacker, Tyler Graf, your front runners off the race from the pit lane. A fuel mileage race is now broken out here at Iowa Speedway. The ButtKicker 175 presented by GSI continues after these messages.
With the ButtKicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. ButtKicker, the future is feeling.
Welcome back to tonight's coverage of the ButtKicker Iowa 175, presented by GSI. Here on RaceSpotTV and ESTV, Justin Prince, Andrew Kinsella with you, with our producer Hugo Wees, as we get ready to go back racing from Iowa Speedway. The cautions have been raining down throughout the night, but now a fuel mileage race has potentially broken out in the midst of the cornfields. Brian Beard in control of the field for the restart, Andrew. The pressure is on to close things out strong.
And the question is, if you're Brian Beard, do you actually want to lead this race? Because knowing how close these drivers will be on fuel economy here, will leading the race allow you to be able to get that fuel economy, or will you want to be in the draft, in the pack here? It's going to be fascinating to see what happens when we go back to green.
Fascination out to get answered for. Green flag is out, back underway. Beard with a good launch. Once again, Tyler Graaf jumping up to the inside of Ron Hacker. Just about every restart, the 88 has tried to pass somebody immediately. This time he does. So far, Brian Beard not backing down on that distance. In fact, keeping the charge up early on, but already 2/10 regain. There is a look at one of the battles. Trevor Malone make a move for fifth.
Yeah, Trevor Malone is looking really racy here on this restart, and that's a driver that we haven't heard a lot from in this second half of the season. But he's really looking strong here today. Meanwhile, we have a switch for position at the lead of the race. Matt Wagner to the front. Meanwhile, Brian Beard and Michael Goodman following.
Our swap up at the front. Michael Goodman now sizing things up in the 99. Just right on behind. Going for a look for the swap. Keeping the attack mode on. Looking for the race lead again. Brian Beard not able to clear though. Wagner holds on to the outside.
Meanwhile, Michael Goodman stalking and trying to use that outside line to great effect here. He's trying to use that momentum on the high side to dispose of Brian Beard. Brian Beard slips up in front of him, though, and that's allowed Tyler Graaf and Trevor Malone to get right back into this battle.
Two trains starting to form up for the moment. Remember, the fuel mileage expected to last about 60 laps at the top end tonight. We'll have to see how far some of these drivers can push it. Speaking of pushing, Goodman pushes to the inside. Able to clear on by the 5. Goodman forced to back up. Back up again. Nearly into the back end of the 5, trying to go underneath.
And that's 60 laps on clean air, Justin, but I think that in traffic you can get a lot more. The question is, if you're Matt Wagner and you're leading this race, can you get the fuel mileage you need to stretch at those extra 5 or so laps?
That's if it goes green. Remember, the trend tonight has been cautions breed, cautions much of the night. Goodman clears on by Beard. Now a battle forms up for second spot. To the inside goes Beard and lets him have it. Goodman likes to lift down the straightaway.
He lifts down the straightaway, but he goes right back underneath Brian Beard in that corner there. I think he really wants to be in second place. He knows that he can make the fuel number that he needs to from that second position. So he is looking to try and position himself as best he can for when he thinks Matt Wagner may just need to come down pit lane. Meanwhile, Wagner is just leading from the front here. It'll be interesting to see if he can make it stretch just enough to get through this full fuel run here at the end.
Most of the field has elected not to battle, keep in mind, still remaining the patient levels up. It's worth noting the drivers who topped off. Samuel Ryman is in 19th, Gary Gonzo is in 21st. A ways back in this train, 5 seconds back at the caboose end of the field, as you see Goodman trying an RP.
Oh, we have a spin.
And another caution, and that of the mileage, that will not help Luis Gonzalez Nunez's race. That will definitely not help Gavin Sanders. Several others scattered along the front straightaway.
And that's Creighton Carter, who's perpendicular to the track there. And as you say, Gavin Sanders, two of the drivers who are sort of most unfortunate in this race. And Gavin Sanders just get tagged by Georgia and Zalda there on the exit of turn 4. Creighton Carter involved in a completely separate incident as they checked up for that original incident as well. So a number of drivers there getting involved beyond just the original two. Just an unfortunate incident, but this does change everything when it comes to the strategy here, Justin.
5 pace laps. Lots of time to be able to save gas. So with this caution, let's take a look again at the second part of the incident. Big
I think that was
checkup.
Matthew Short.
Yeah.
Creighton, he just checked up a lot for that spinning car in front of him, and Matthew Short just nowhere to go, unfortunately. You see a number of drivers coming down pit lane, particularly in the back half of the field, trying to find a little bit of a tire difference, a little bit of a strategy difference. Tony Schowen and Joe Hassert being two of the most prominent drivers coming down on this now alternate strategy here, trying to find that little bit extra opportunity here in these final 40 or so laps.
I was about to say, we've seen a tire significance by as much as 15 laps play a huge difference here tonight, Andrew.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind this play from either Schowen or Passer or even Ricky Harden as well. The trouble for them right now is that the drivers in between themselves and some of the drivers who stayed out. It's going to be very important that those drivers come down pit lane so that they can start attacking as quickly as possible, because the shine will go off those tires and they will start to equalize just a little bit as this run goes on.
Up at the front, though, Matt Wagner, critically, now your race leader. Is this going to be enough? Is the huge thing we mentioned, the fuel save being a huge thing, Andrew, of course, with the caution flags. Is Matt Wagner going to be comfortable now that he has had these pace laps to save the fuel as the leader?
It'll certainly make him more comfortable, Justin. I don't know that he'll be perfectly comfortable being the leader here. He's got to know whatever his fuel number is, what it has to be in order for him to hit it. And we hit this off the top here. Matt Wagner really needs to capitalize on Matt Taylor's misfortune here if he wants to get back into this championship fight. This is a golden opportunity for Matt Wagner. He cannot lose this on fuel economy here.
Especially with how big this race could play out for his championship hopes. Remember, he talked about weeks ago, after some of the incidents, that he thought his chances were done. How would this turn it around?
I think that it was a little bit premature for him to count himself out of the championship at this point. Yes, Matt Taylor is a great driver, but we've seen here tonight that misfortune can happen to even the best of drivers. So if you're Matt Wagner, you cannot give up on this championship, and you cannot give up on this race, but you have to make sure that whatever decisions you make for the next 45 laps, they are in mind of winning this race, and that goal only. You have to start your championship turnaround right here tonight.
Blaze Curley still on the iRacing pace car. Currently, the caution count is in a high range, I believe. Unofficially, has just about reached the track record for the series, at least. But with 48 to go, now down to 45, should say. Anything can happen to add to that. I joke. Samuel Ryman, by the way, topped off to get back to 19th.
Yeah, I think what you'll find, though, Justin, is that as this race goes on and we eliminate more and more drivers, the track gets just that little bit less crowded, and it's less and less likely that we see these incidents happening. Yes, we've had a couple where it's just been a little bit of misjudgment, but I think right now we're in sort of a good spot here in terms of number of drivers left on track, where it's really promising that we can get to the end here without another caution.
Coming up to 44 to go. Back underway. Wagner tries to run away. Fresh tires are 10th on back, remember. See how they try and carve the way forward. Goodman. Putting footstep from Tyler Graaf. No move from Graaf yet.
And one thing that we didn't cover, though, was Joe Branch, your second place championship contender right now. He's up to 7th place. He did not come down pit lane there on that final caution, so he's in front of all those drivers on the fresh tires. So that's going to be big if he's able to keep that sort of position here. Right now, he's just trying to work around Ron Hacker here for that 6th position, but the top 5 are starting to break away.
That right there, Tony Schowen right behind George Anzono is the first on his strategy. Anzono tries to hold up the inside, up the outside goes Schowen. Here come the freshies, up for the lead, Matt Wagner going for the top spot seeds.
Wagner has been defending here from Brian Beard. Brian Beard was really strong on that restart and looked to contest that top position for at least for a moment. Schowen, again, this is the driver we really want to monitor his progress to see just how far he's able to get up on this restart here. Because if he's able to get around Ron Hacker and his teammate Joe Branch here, he's going to be in a really good position for the end of this race.
Absolutely, already up to 8th spot, mind you. Harden, the next driver behind him, interesting enough. What a chance this could be for Harden, who nearly gets squished.
It was really close for Ricky Harden coming off of turn 4 there. You saw him just get a little bit tight coming off the corner there. And Luis Gonzalez-Nunez was right on top of him. Joe Branch was right behind him. They did a good job of staying off of him and keeping us clean and green here.
Mike Regney now second on the strategy call of the fresher tires. They did have a bit of a buffer built up from the initial start. That buffer is gone, though. Joe Branch now is under fire up the track, though. Branch loses a spot. Joe Branch could be in trouble.
And that was losing a spot to his teammate Tony Schowen. And Schowen is coming here for this top 5 position here. Those fresh tires are really working a treat for him. Meanwhile, Joe Branch, he's under fire here from some of these drivers on that alternate strategy. Ricky Harden also slicing his way through the field, and Joe Hassard is about to as well.
So Branch trying to hold on to a top 10 as hard as he can. Joe Hassard looking to carve that away. Can't do anything. Rigney to the outside. Checkup involving some of the others on the outside line. Trying to take the long way through some of the bumps down to the 33 lap to go mark this time by.
And this is where it's so difficult if you're back in the track or back in the pack here, Justin. It is you have to not only anticipate what's going to be the fast way around, where's the clean air, but what are the other cars going to do in terms of checkups, and it becomes so difficult. This is where you really earn your money if you're an oval track specialist. Is this type of situation right here in the back of the pack, trying to make your way through with fresh tires.
Of note, when it comes to the drivers on this strategy, Tony Schowen, mentioned is the leader of the net strategy. You know, the pylon, the 31 is up to the 5th position. Rigney has been passed by Ricky Harden in the midst of all this. Here is a look now at where Tony Schowen is, because Tony is coming and fast. Tony Schowen up to 4th, has passed by Graaf. Here comes Ricky Harden.
And those fresh tires are working a treat for that number 31 Powerslide Motorsports driver. He is really coming on strong here. And Ricky Harden is no less trying to make this work. And you can see just how well that outside line is working. Graaf tries to come up in front of him, but Ricky Harden just says, okay, I'll go down low. And he's going to clear him through turn 1 and 2.
Ricky Harden has not had the prettiest of seasons. He's 30th in the points with 8 starts this season. His best finish a 6th to start off the campaign for himself at Homestead. Since then, 9th, 23rd, 17th, 18th, 10th, 7th, 12th. Can this be the night? He now looks to try and get around Goodman. This for 4th. He nearly puts himself in the wall.
And that's only for 4th because Tony Schown was able to get around his teammate on the high side here. He's really rolling at a high side while he's trying to do the same up here. Now he may look low here through turns 3 and 4. He is already up to 3rd, looking for 2nd right now.
See Tony Schown waiting for the chance. Going high side. From the top shelf. Going from the cross. He launches it to the middle, not able to get alongside Beard. Forced to tuck back in, 25 to go.
This is really where it gets difficult for Tony Schown because Brian Beard is able to get just a little bit of clean air on his wings and he's able to roll that high side so well.
Trouble.
Oh, we've got a big impact. That's George Anzaldo.
The caution flag is out. George Anzaldo, Scott Rankin involved. Isaiah Dupree takes the obstacle course. And we're under caution once again.
It looks like there was just a little bit of an impact with the number 98 of Isaiah Dupree. Anzaldo was just an innocent bystander there. Gets collected after Dupree collects that inside line. We've seen it time and time again. You cannot hit the apron here. And unfortunately, the number 98 of Isaiah Dupree commits a cardinal sin. And then Anzaldo, nothing he can do there.
I believe Scott Rankin's incident was a separate incident at the exact same time down the back straightaway. But now what do you do? Tire time. Coming in for Beard. Wagner did not take tires.
But a whole bunch of other drivers are coming down pit lane. Joe Hassert, another driver, staying out here. It surprises me how many drivers are not staying out here, actually, a little bit. So Brian Beard, he's going to be probably 3rd or 4th in line here when this all shakes out. So this is going to be some very interesting times here. Matt Wagner, he was sort of in this weird situation where you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you come down, no one else is going to come down. If you come down, or if you don't come down, everyone else comes down. But the rest of the drivers, it's very interesting here that some of these drivers didn't try to get that track position and maintain it. It's an interesting call here. And I think Brian Beard and Michael Goodman are in the catbird seat.
Wagner staying out on 44 lap tires, mind you. Tony Schown and Joe Hassert 26 this time around. What becomes the play here if you're the top 3? You know fresh tires have been able to carve on by within about 5 to 15 laps in some cases.
So if you're Matt Wagner, it's simple. You have to defend no matter what against Tony Schown. If Tony Schown and Joe Hassert, but more importantly, if Tony Schown can get around you on this restart, you're done. Because there's no way that you can fight off both Tony Schown, Joe Hassert, but all of the rest of the clean air or the fresh tires as well. If you're Tony Schown, your move has to be to get to the front of this field as quickly as possible and use the clean air to try to overcome the tire advantage that Brian Beard will have. Same with Joe Hassert. And then if you're the rest of this field, like Michael Goodman, like Brian Beard, like Tyler Graff, you're just using those fresh tires for everything that they're worth. You have to get to the front of your own strategy and then focus forward on that front of the field.
Coming up to 21 laps to go. Light still on. Worth noting. Hear that sound? Fuel burn time.
Absolutely is, particularly for the drivers who have topped off over the course of this race. They need to burn off as much fuel as they can, and that is a feature of iRacing where you do get a significant advantage just by burning off that little bit of fuel. It can be the difference between coming first and coming third in some of these races. You have to be as light as you possibly can in order to transfer the least amount of energy through the tires, and as silly as it sounds, a half gallon, a full gallon of fuel does make a difference.
On a 19-lap shootout coming up, expecting the lights to go out this time. Attrition has been a big part of the night. We're down to 15 cars on the lead lap. 2 cars are running a lap down. Shane Coog and Hugo Gallons.
And if you're Matt Wagner, if you're Joe Branch, that means so much for the championship with Matt Taylor being in that 26th position out of the race. The question is, will they be able to optimize from the positions that they're in? Matt Wagner in first place on the oldest tires in the field. Joe Branch in 10th place. We haven't seen him be able to make any tires work, regardless of how big an advantage he has. So they've got to find a way in these last 20 laps here, Justin.
Drivers already playing the snake games and the checkup games coming up to the restart. Wagner backing up the field with the pace car off. Green flag is out, 19 to go from Iowa. And the chess match continues with the final running for 5th. Tyler Graf passes Goodman. Also, Joe Hassard gets around and holding around Brian Beard.
That's so important for Tyler Graf here to have a good end of this race, to get around Michael Goodman. That puts him within 1 position of being the lead of their strategy. Most importantly is that the lead hasn't changed places yet for Matt Wagner, for Tony Schowen. Schowen's got to find a way here past Matt Wagner in the next few laps, or else he's not going to be able to hold off Brian Beard.
Goodman has regained the spot. Beard all over the back end of Hassard, going for 3rd. Brian Beard takes away the 3rd spot. Up in front of them, Tony Schowen going for the cross for the lead. Tony Schowen to the inside. Wagner squeezes. Near contact for the entry. Wagner not backing off. Up to the lead goes Schowen. To the inside for 2nd goes Beard. Beard looking for the pole.
It's opened the door for Brian Beard, and this is exactly what Brian Beard needed. Was Schowen and Wagner were so convinced, fighting for themselves, that both Beard and Goodman now are fighting for the lead of this race. Wagner falling like a stone on those old tires.
Beard not backing down with Goodman to the inside. Schowen playing the lanes. 15 to go this time as Goodman reaches for the lead. Goodman to the inside. Beard looking outside. Boxed in. Tony Schowen leads to the line, but Goodman takes the lead in turn 1.
Keep in mind, those are Powerside Motorsports teammates 1 and 2 right now. Goodman does take the lead coming out of 2. Schowen looks to the inside. Oh, they make contact!
Schowen wrecks his teammate. Goodman upside down. And collects Matt Wagner. And the caution is out.
Oh my goodness, Justin, what has happened here in front of us? Tony Schowen pushes up through the middle of 3 and 4 and gets into the side of his own teammate, and Matt Wagner nowhere to go. Huge championship implications for Matt Wagner there.
What were we talking about earlier in terms of the luck for Goodman? The luck just ran out. And this could decide the race.
Goodman had done such a good job positioning himself so well for that finish. He had just been able to get fear of his teammate there, and he would have been free and clear to the end, and it would have been Goodman's race to lose. But unfortunately, that small mistake there from Tony Schowen has doomed Goodman to finishing down in about 14th or 15th position, and it's just really unfortunate end there for Goodman. Hassard, meanwhile, coming down pit lane, he realizes that those old tires are not going to do him any good here. We will have probably about a 7-lap shootout here for the victory.
Mind you, the fresh tires still ready to stack behind. Ron Hacker, you see, is in the 8th spot. Take this time to look at your driver profile brought to you by Moser Racing. Could he break through for a 2nd top 5? Here tonight, he's looking on the verge of a 6th top 10. Has finished 5th twice in this series. He's had the pace to run inside the top 5 tonight again, though. anything could happen, and he's already looking hungry to retake spots, you can see.
Yeah, I think what he's doing is going up teammate to figure out whether or not he has damage, which, as you can see, that right side front wing is definitely looking damaged on a part of that 21 car, so he's going to come down pit lane and take a little bit of service here. The good thing for Ron Hacker is that there's only 12 or 13 cars on the lead lap, so he's not going to fall too far back, but unfortunately for Hacker, he was just caught up a little bit in that Matt Wagner incident.
And the interesting thing about the team dynamic, I think I can mention as well here is GLC MadWorks machines are amongst those on the fresh tires here. You also have some independents mixed in. Remember how we talked about Tyler Graff in his performance in qualifying? He might have a chance at a three-peat here.
He certainly does. And another driver to keep in mind here, Justin, is Joe Branch is in about 7th position here. So it's going to be very interesting what happens on this restart. I think Tony Schowen, the thing with Schowen is that it does take a couple of laps for the tires to sort of come back up to temperature after caution. The question will be whether he has enough time that Brian Beard and Tyler Graff really has a shot, or will he be able to keep them back for just long enough here? It's all going to be down to how well those tires perform in the last 2 or 3 laps of this run to the finish.
Meanwhile, in the rookie battle, remember Shane Coogan and his side pod damage involved in one of the cautions early on, back a couple? He's in 14th because he is elected to keep on running laps, and some of his competitors may not be happy about the chip away strategy is working for Coogan. Coogan might salvage a good points night from this.
Certainly seems like he will, and it does just tighten up that rookie points battle ever tighter with Andrew Wood, who of course had a disastrous day here tonight as well. So all of the championship battles right now, Justin, are just being thrown on their head.
One to go signal on the track. Tony Schowen, the current race leader. Brian Beard, the first on fresh tires. Tyler Graff, Ricky Harden, Trevor Malone, the top 5. Joe Branch, Mike Rickney, Dakota DeMade in the top 8. James Watson is up to 9th. Samuel Ryman, because Samuel Ryman is in 10th.
I think this top 10, Justin, just goes to show that sometimes you just need to survive a race rather than thrive, because we've got some very lucky drivers in this top 10.
Strategy of survive to the finish rings true tonight. 13 cars left on the lead lap. 7 laps to determine where they will land on the pylon. Tony Schowen takes them to the low side for the restart. Green flag is out. Ricky Harding with a good launch from 4th. No good launch from Beard. Ralph not on the move. Here comes Ricky Harding for 3rd.
That was a very interesting tactic there from the 31 of Tony Schowen. It might have given him enough for this to work. Trevor Malone also looking to the inside of Tyler Graff. Tyler Graff getting swallowed up on this restart.
The Snake King breaking down straight away. Beard looking to the outside for a moment, playing defense. Meanwhile, is Trevor Malone for 4. 2, 3 wide into 3. Beard looking for the lead out of 4. Brian Beard going for the race lead underneath Tony Schowen with 5 laps to go. The point of no return. Beard gets to the point.
Now that was what Tony Schowen wanted to try to avoid, was getting back in the pack, but Ricky Harden is looking to the outside as well, so Schowen's got to have one eye on Beard. Oh no, he got the contact!
Around goes Schowen, collected with Ricky Harden. Several others
Branch was a part of that as well.
He was upside down indeed, and the caution waits for Brian Beard with under 4 to go.
Past the point of no return, Brian Beard is going to be the winner of this race. Meanwhile, Tony Schowen, Joe Branch, Ricky Harden. That was an unfortunate incident. It looked like Trevor Malone got to the inside of Ricky Harden, and then Tony Schowen, I don't know what kind of air net code curse that he had from that race, but it looks like after what happened with Michael Goodman, he fully had a curse involved in that.
And that should just about do it for the race. With 3 to go, we're past the estimated point of return unless something spooky happens. And just about all your championship contenders get involved in big incidents today. Joe Branch out of the race. Matt Wagner 17th to end it. Matt Taylor 26th. But Brian Beard is the one who ends up surviving to get up to the front towards the end of this one. And a car without any wings on it in some circumstances may finish second. Tony Schowen.
Yeah, I don't know how Tony Schowen had iRacing place him back in the second spot there, but somehow he may just finish in second spot in this race, Justin.
He has mandatory repairs, though, a meatball flag in the sim. Will the sim disqualify him?
I mean, if I were Tony Schowen, I would keep circulating under this caution until the sim disqualifies me.
Once you get that point of past 3 laps to serve the meatball flag, they place you at the end of that respective lap cycle. With 2 to go, we'll see how this works. So this does end things off here. Well,
no question about it. Brian Beard is going to win this race. The question that we have now is who is going to finish second?
Could be Tyler Graff, who might come off a stretch of a win in a second and 3 starts. If Tony Schowen holds on to second, this will be a very unpopular second. Imagine if he took the win. Remember, there was a penalty for an incident off a restart for Andrew Wood that's seen his points taken away from the win earlier this year. Got up to the 1 to go for the race. Brian Beard, he changed the statistics a bit tonight. Most of the laps, 102, coming up to 103 when this race ends. Most laps led Andrew. He played this race very smartly.
He really did, and he was one of the strongest drivers throughout the course of this race. There's no 2 ways about it. So this is a deserving win for that number 5 car to Brian Beard. He really showed not just the speed, but also the strategy to win this, and he was out front when it counted towards the end of the race. So definitely nothing away from Brian Beard finishing this under caution. He truly deserved to win this race.
Coming up to the checker flag in what was an eventful night from Iowa Speedway. Brian Beard leads the most laps. Take the checker flag this time by to win the ButtKicker Iowa 175 presented by GSI. Beard off to celebrate. Tony Schowen does get credit for second currently. Tyler Graff third as the fireworks go off in the literal sense, not just the figurative one now. What can he say after a wild night here? Brian Beard, his first victory of the season after a best finish of 5th position.
Been a wild and crazy night in Iowa, Justin, but the cream really did rise to the top of this race. Brian Beard, as I said, just a deserving winner of this race. Tyler Graff, another one who just hung around there in that top 5, top 7 position throughout the course of this race, but no one could touch Brian Beard in terms of laps led, and he was leading when it counted as well, right towards the end of the race.
The celebration is on for Brian Beard after an eventful night, to say the very least. Celebration is on as let's take a glance at how Night fared out in turn from Iowa Speedway, at least on the unofficial side of the board. Your race results brought to you by SimRace247.com. Again, unofficial, the key word. Beard the winner, but Tony Shawan does cross the line second. Tyler Graf, Trevor Malone, Mike Rigney, the top 5. Dakota Maid finishes 6th. James Watson finds the top 10. Joseph Hassard, along with Samuel Ryman, Gary Gonzo, the top 10. Ricky Harden had a chance for the win. Instead, he finishes in 11th. Wolf Shane Coogan, he picks up plenty of points from his Rookie of the Year competitors. Hugo Gallas in 13th, Ron Hacker 14th, Joe Branch, Michael Goodman, Matt Wagner, the top 17. Isaiah Dupree, George Inzotto, Scott Rankin, the top 20. 21st to Matthew Short, Braden Carter in 22nd, Gavin Sanders, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Craig Forsyth, the top 25. Matt Taylor, Ryan King, Dean Mull, Cody Wenson, Andrew Wood, the top 30. Jacob Alster ended up in 31st. Mike Gibson, Jim Herrick, Gabe Wood, and Jeff Hyson picked up technical issues before the start of the race. He did not record a lap turn. The fast lap goes to Ricky Harden, lap 189 before the big kaboom. Look at your race results brought to you by SimRace 24/7. That brings us to our post-race coverage brought to you by HyperX, as the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the luxury ultra-comfortable gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit HyperX.com. Let's dive straight into HyperX Victory Lane in just a moment, because the celebration about to get underway for Brian Beard after an eventful night. Andrew, our drivers, making their way forward for the celebration for the podium. An eventful one, to say the least, but Beard wins from second starting spot.
Absolutely, an incredibly eventful race that we've witnessed here tonight at Iowa Speedway, and Iowa never seems to disappoint us in terms of action, Justin. But the big thing for me is I'm going to be very intrigued on how this impacts the standings going forward, because obviously Branch and Wagner didn't have the best of nights here, but they certainly didn't have as bad a night as Matt Taylor did. So what happens with the championship standings going forward is going to be very, very interesting as we get into the real tail end of the season here going forward.
Waiting for Brian Beard from HyperX Victory Lane. Let's stop by with Tony Shawan from the second spot. Again, unofficially, Tony Shawan in that position on the racetrack. You've seen how things picked up for a wild second place run here tonight. Tony Shawan now joins us. Tony, an eventful race for you. Talk us through the crazy finish for you tonight. Tony. Drive again. Tony Shawan, do you have a copy? We may be having a technical issue. We cannot hear Tony Shawan. So Tony Shawan, get things sorted. Brian Beard has made his visit over to HyperX Victory Lane, meanwhile, I believe. Get a word in with Brian Beard. Brian, do you have a copy? Try this again. Brian Beard, do you have a copy? 0 for 2 so far. Somebody will get a word in. I believe Andrew Kinsella is off to HyperX Victory Lane to help things out right now. Let's talk with Tyler Graf. Tyler, do you have a copy?
I think I do.
That's 1 for 3. Tyler, you charged for the pack tonight. How would you describe the night?
That was a tough race, dude. Passing was really tough. It was just cutthroat. It was so hard to get a line. It was so hard to find clean air. There were a lot of guys that just weren't given a lot of room, so you kind of just had to look at what they were doing and hang back and then wait or push forward at certain times. I figured something out on the starts, just hanging my nose out, and I'm honestly surprised nobody else kind of copied me on that, but I think I got most of my spots tonight on that. I just want to thank our sponsor, Nizumi, and my teammates. Matt was having a great race until I think he got in some netcode incident. And then Brian on his first win, he's absolutely stoked. So I'm really pumped for him. I thought for a little while there it was going to be a second place finish. I thought Shaolin had a meatball, but I guess iRacing doesn't do that at the finish. But it was a good race. Everyone up front was really quick. It was really competitive.
So this breaks the win streak, yes, but a new streak builds up in turn, the top 3 streak. You've had good momentum here so far. Can you keep it going is the huge question, and how do you plan to approach things now to try and keep the momentum going you've had in the 88?
Yeah, I'm honestly out there just points racing. I'm trying to help Graafix LC get this team championship. We kind of formed halfway through the season, so we're chipping away at it little by little. As far as the streak goes, I don't know. I'm honestly a little relieved, because if you get 3 in a row, then everyone's going, okay, are you going to get 4? And it's, I don't know. All streaks got to come to an end. So I don't know. I'm just happy to be running up front and have this consistency, and it's starting to translate over to the other series a little bit too. Confidence is a big thing in racing. When the mental side of racing is so huge, you got to have that confidence in your pocket.
Charlotte Motor Speedway up next. Approach for Charlotte for 200 miles.
Survive. Charlotte's really narrow for these things. So I think it's going to be a lot like tonight. It's just going to be mind your P's and Q's, watch what everyone else is doing, maybe see who's being a little too aggressive, and then kind of pick them off one by one and go from there.
Thank you very much for time, Tower.
Thanks, guys.
Tower Graf coming away in 3rd spot tonight. Eventful run once again. Now let's take a look towards HyperX victory lane. Brian Beard is now standing by once again. Brian, do you have a copy?
I got you, Justin. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have won your first race of the season. How does it feel?
Oh my gosh, man, I am so ecstatic right now. That was a lot of adrenaline and pretty intense there at the end of that race.
Most laps led throughout the night. Talk us through your strategy approach to try and get these laps led, and in turn, hold on to the tempo of this race.
Honestly, that really wasn't my intention. My intention was kind of save fuel and just save my tires, because one thing we noticed with these tires is once you get to a certain lap mark, they just fall off, and trying to make a pass is incredibly difficult. So I just kind of took the spots as they came to me, and then once I got up front, I decided that I didn't want to give that up. So
internally seeing the results, how would you describe the efforts to try and break through tonight? Because you've been close a couple times. In fact, Twin Moon will take you were very close. Tonight, you finally break through.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming. This is my first Lionheart win, and man, I couldn't be happier about it. But I have to give a lot of credit out to Tyler and Matt, my teammates, and everybody in Team Synergy. And this has just been absolutely awesome. And I don't want to forget my sponsor, GSI.
Hey, congratulations on the victory tonight.
Thank you so much, Justin.
Brian Beard coming away with his first career victory. He does it here at Iowa. I'd like to thank him as well. Tower Graf for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage here on RaceSpot and ESTV. Andrew, an eventful night. The strategy roulette comes up with car 5 in HyperX victory lane.
And I think Brian was being a little bit modest there. He drove a really, really strong race. And even if he wasn't necessarily intending to be where he was at the end of the race, he was in exactly the right position. And he drove an absolutely outstanding race. So he's a well-deserved winner here tonight at Iowa.
This incident you see on screen really changed the complexion of this championship, Andrew. The points likely taking a shakeup with some of the drops. What do you think we may see in turn for Charlotte next time out with the attrition building up here tonight?
I think it just cranks up the urgency just that little bit more from your championship contenders. You had Joe Branch in a prime opportunity. You had Matt Wagner in a prime opportunity here today, and they just weren't able to capitalize. Sooner or later, if they're going to be able to get up to Matt Taylor and displace him off the top of the standings, they have to capitalize on one of these opportunities that presents himself. And Charlotte is one of those places where if you're in the right spot at the right time, you can convert an opportunity. So you need to be looking for that if you're Joe Branch or if you're Matt Wagner here.
Once again, that race, September the 26th, starts at 10:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Catch that as well at 7:05 p.m. Pacific, again from Charlotte Motor Speedway. But on that note, it's time to thank our partners. Part of tonight's action and our sponsors. Moser Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like the R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology and made from high-end materials, Moser Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the luxury ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. You play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit HyperX.com. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. ButtKicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install. You feel every bump of the track, slip of your tire, and engine red line. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, driving faster and having more fun than ever before. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit www.nextlevelracing.com. Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Precision built using nothing but the best material available today. Passion handmade craftsmanship drives each made-to-order build to create a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. Not just those names, but these as well, who help make things swirl around here for the Lionheart Racing Series. To learn more, go to LionheartRacingSeries.com. But on that note, it's time to say goodbye. For my broadcast partner, Andrew Kinsella, for Hugo Ruiz, I'm Justin Prince saying so long, enjoy the rest of your evening. You've been watching the Lionheart Speedway Series presented by Moser Racing from Iowa Speedway. Congratulations to Brian Beard, your winner from Iowa.